Success is not an accident, it's a practiced behavior. It doesn't happen by wishing, hoping, or waiting. It doesn't land in your lap because the stars aligned or because you got lucky one day. No success is built, earned, crafted with calloused hands and a focused heart. It's built in the early hours when the world is asleep and you're wide awake chasing a purpose bigger than your pain. It's built in the quiet moments when there's no applause, no recognition, and no one cheering for you, just the inner voice whispering, "Don't quit." That's where success is forged, not on stage but behind the curtain, not in the spotlight but in the shadows. Success is a skill, and skills aren't given. They're practiced, rehearsed, repeated, until they become who you are. Most people don't fail because they lack potential. They fail because they never trained for it. You don't stumble into success by accident. You don't wake up one day and find yourself living your dream life without having fought for it. You don't get the rewards without the reps. That's the truth, and it's time to face it. If you don't practice success, you're practicing failure by default. If you don't wake up with intention, you're waking up with neglect. If you don't act on purpose, you'll drift with regret. This is why success is not a personality trait, it's a performance habit. It's not about being charismatic or born talented. It's about what you consistently do when no one's watching. It's about the decision you make when the bed is warm and the alarm is loud. It's about the food you eat, the words you speak, the thoughts you believe, and the habits you repeat every single day. There's a lie being sold out there that success is for the few, the ones born with it, that it's written in the stars or sealed by genetics. But let me tell you something, it's written in blood, sweat, sacrifice, and self-discipline. Success doesn't belong to the lucky, it belongs to the relentless. The committed, the ones who say, no matter how long it takes, I'll outlast the noise, I'll outwork the doubt, I'll out-train the excuses. That's the mindset of someone who understands that success isn't a destination, it's a skill. And skills are mastered with repetition, not once, not twice, but over and over until excellence becomes second nature. Every person you admire, every success story you read about, every legend you look up to, they didn't get there by dreaming. They got there by doing, day after day, through pain, through failure, through setbacks and rejection and silence. They learned to love the grind. They learned to respect the process. They treated their life like it mattered because it does. They didn't wait for motivation to knock, they got up without it. They didn't wait to be told what to do, they trained themselves to act when it was hard, when it was boring, when it was thankless. That's mastery. That's the real definition of success. You see, we live in a world where people want the crown without the cross. They want the prize without the price, but you can't microwave mastery. You can't cheat the climb. You have to be willing to outlast the pain of average. You have to fall in love with the stretch, the discomfort, the tension between where you are and where you know you're meant to be. Because every time you choose growth over comfort, you're practicing success. Every time you show up when it's inconvenient, you're building a skill that compounds over time. You don't need a stage to become excellent. You just need a mirror and a commitment to never lie to the man looking back at you. Success is not about shouting louder than others, it's about showing up stronger than your excuses. It's the quiet choice to keep going when you want to stop. It's the invisible work that nobody claps for, but pays off when the lights finally hit. It's the unglamorous moments, the journaling, the praying, the reading, the sacrificing that prepare you for the opportunity you've been waiting for. Because make no mistake, your moment will come. The question is, will you be ready? Will you have the skill? Will you have the capacity, the character, the discipline to carry what you've been dreaming of? If you're not training for it, you're not ready for it. And if you're not willing to practice it in the dark, you'll fumble it in the light. That's why you have to start now, right now, not when you feel like it. Not when life gets easier, not when the pain goes away. Start today. Choose to become the kind of person who earns success because you've trained for it, you've bled for it, you've humbled yourself for it. You've given up comfort, applause, distraction, all for the quiet pursuit of greatness. And here's the truth that will separate you from 97% of the world. Most people are not willing to repeat the boring disciplines that lead to extraordinary results. Most people dabble in success, but they never train like it's their job. They flirt with excellence, but they never commit to mastery. But the very few, they treat success like a craft, like an instrument they practice. Like a muscle they build, they read, they listen, they execute, even when it's not popular, even when no one understands them, even when there's no reward in sight. They do it because it's who they are, because their standards are too high to tolerate mediocrity, because they know what's at stake. There's a fire inside you that doesn't need permission to burn. It just needs your decision to fan the flame. You weren't made to settle. You weren't built to be average. You were designed to rise not by accident, but by alignment. Alignment with your purpose, with your values, with your calling. And when your habits match your purpose, the world begins to change around you. Your results change, your relationships change, your energy changes, but most importantly, your identity changes, because you no longer see success as a far-off goal, you see it as your default state. The natural byproduct of the man you've become through practice, so stop waiting, stop hoping for the right opportunity, stop wishing for a break, start training, start preparing, start mastering the small things. Because small things done consistently over time build empires. That's not motivation, that's law. That's truth, and it will never fail you. The habits you build today are the reality you live tomorrow. If you keep practicing excuses, you'll get really good at justifying failure. But if you practice success, even in the tiniest ways, you're creating a life that will shock the world. A life that leaves people asking, how did he do it? And you'll know. You'll smile because while they were watching movies, you were writing the script of your destiny. While they were scrolling, you were building. While they were hoping, you were honing. You didn't just wish for success, you trained for it. That's the power of treating success like a skill. You become unshakable. You become consistent. You become trustworthy not just to others, but to yourself. You become someone who doesn't need motivation because you've built momentum. And momentum, once earned, is a weapon. It carries you. It multiplies. It makes everything harder for your competition and easier for you because you've practiced. You've trained. You've earned it. And now nothing and no one can take it from you. Success is not a secret. It's not hidden behind doors you can't open. It's right there in your hands, in your schedule, in your decisions. The only question is, will you master it, or will you watch someone else who did? Will you train for it, or will you talk about it? Will you make excuses, or will you make history? Because if success is a skill, and it is, then today is your classroom. Your life is the lesson, and the results you live are the final exam. Train like it matters, because it does. You don't rise to the level of your goals, you fall to the level of your habits. That's the part no one wants to hear. It's uncomfortable. It demands responsibility. It takes away the fantasy of success and replaces it with a mirror that reflects what you do daily, not what you claim you want. That mirror doesn't lie. It doesn't care how ambitious you sound, how fired up you get after a video, or how loud you shout your dreams. It only reflects what's true, and what's true is this: you are not your goals, you are your patterns. The way you live is louder than the way you wish. Think about it. You say you want to be fit, but what are your habits? You say you want to build wealth, but what's your spending look like? You want to lead, but are you showing discipline when nobody is around? Because that's the real test. Success doesn't show up just because you wrote it down. It shows up when you live it out. It shows up in the boring routines you repeat every day, the ones nobody sees, but everyone eventually feels. People admire results, but what they don't see is the routine behind the results. The hundreds of decisions you made when quitting would have been easier, when comfort was calling, when shortcuts were tempting. That's where success is really born, not in ambition, but in alignment. Every day, you're either building habits that serve your vision or habits that sabotage it. There is no in between. There's no neutral ground. Every moment, every choice, every just this once, stacks into a direction forward or backward. And that's why habits matter more than hype, because hype wears off, emotion fades, but habits stick. Habits decide whether your life changes or stays the same, because the truth is, your future is just a reflection of your current routine. You say you want to be successful. Show me your morning. Show me what you do when you're tired, when you're angry, when the world disappoints you. Show me how you respond to setbacks, how you talk to yourself in silence, how you act when nobody applauds. That's who you are, and that's where success is shaped not in the spotlight, but in the shadows. You will not rise to your boldest dreams. You will fall to your quietest defaults. So raise your defaults. Raise your standard. Build habits so strong that they carry you when motivation leaves the room. Most people never succeed, not because they're incapable, but because they expect to succeed without training for it. They expect to handle millions when they can't manage hundreds. They expect to lead others when they can't even lead themselves. They dream of freedom, but live in chaos, because they're obsessed with outcomes and allergic to discipline. But here's what they don't understand. The reward doesn't come before the routine. You don't get results before the reps. You don't earn success until you can handle structure. The most successful people on the planet don't just have vision, they have routines that protect that vision. They don't just think big, they live small in the daily details that build big futures. You can't fake it. You can't talk your way into a result you didn't train for. You can't buy your way into peace if your habits are constantly inviting chaos. You can't inspire others if your own life is out of alignment. You have to become what you expect. You have to build the kind of life where excellence is the default, not the exception. Where showing up is not something you do when it's easy, but something you do because it's who you are. You don't need more dreams, you need more discipline. You don't need more emotion, you need execution. You don't need louder goals, you need stronger systems. Every time you think about skipping a habit, remember this: your habits are not just what you do, they are what you become. When you snooze the alarm, when you skip the workout, when you choose the distraction, you're not just delaying results, you're reinforcing the identity of someone who breaks promises to themselves. And if you do it enough times, you start to believe that's who you are. That's the most dangerous part, not the missed workout, not the wasted day, but the identity you're rehearsing. You become someone who doesn't follow through. And the more you see yourself that way, the harder it becomes to ever rise above it. But the good news, that door swings both ways. Every time you keep your word, every time you follow through when it's hard, every time you show up anyway, you reinforce the identity of someone who wins. Someone who's disciplined, someone who doesn't quit, and eventually that becomes your new default, your new baseline, and suddenly success doesn't feel like a fight, it feels like a habit, like something that belongs to you because you trained for it. You want to change your life, change your habits, not all at once, but one at a time. Start with one small promise and keep it, then another, then another. Stack those promises until your confidence grows, your discipline tightens, and your identity shifts. It doesn't happen overnight, but it will happen if you stay consistent. You don't need to be perfect, you just need to be committed. You just need to show up. You just need to keep stacking wins, no matter how small. Because small wins turn into big victories, and big victories change your entire life. People often ask, what's the secret? The secret is this. The system is the secret. Build a system. Build a routine. Build a structure that supports your success, even when your feelings don't. If you rely on motivation, you'll fail every time it disappears. But if you rely on habits, you'll thrive regardless of mood. Motivation is a guest, habits are the home. Build a home so solid that no storm can shake it. And if you want to go even deeper, train your habits for pressure, because it's easy to stick to a plan when everything's good. But what about when you're tired, when you're hurting, when life blindsides you and people betray you and nothing makes sense? That's when real success habits are revealed. Can you still show up? Can you still lead? Can you still hold yourself to the standard, even when everything around you is falling apart? Because that's not just discipline, that's character, that's leadership, and that's the kind of foundation success builds upon. Your habits are your armor. They protect your dream when motivation disappears. They protect your vision when distractions scream. They protect your confidence when the world doubts you, but only if you train them, only if you build them, only if you respect them. So the real question isn't what do you want? The real question is what are you practicing? Because in the end, you won't get what you wish for, you'll get what you repeat. And what you repeat becomes your reputation, not just with others, but with yourself. So build a reputation of excellence. Build habits that match the weight of your calling. Build routines that honor the size of your vision. That's how you win not once, but over and over again. That's how you become unstoppable. Because at the end of the day, your goals don't decide your life, your habits do. You cannot master success if you are a slave to your emotions. You cannot build anything great when your actions are dictated by how you feel in the moment, because your emotions will lie to you. They'll tell you you're too tired, it's too hard, you've done enough, and if you listen, you will lose. Not because life was unfair, not because the odds were against you, but because you handed over your power to a fleeting mood. That's the trap most people live in. They wait to feel good to take action. They wait to feel motivated to be consistent. They wait for the right time, but that time never comes. Why? Because success doesn't wait for your feelings to catch up. It moves at the speed of discipline. It moves at the speed of action. And if you're not moving with it, it will pass you by. Success doesn't slow down to besit your emotions. It expects you to rise above them. You've got to understand your feelings are valid, but they're not reliable. They're not meant to drive the car. They're meant to ride in the back seat. You might feel fear, doubt, laziness, frustration, and that's okay. But you don't stop. You don't hand them the keys. You let them speak, but you don't let them decide. Because the minute your emotions take the wheel, they'll drive you straight into regret. Think about how many opportunities have been missed not because someone wasn't capable, but because they didn't feel like trying that day. Think about how many dreams were buried under the weight of "I'll do it later." How many goals were killed by the comfort of delay. That's why the most dangerous words in your vocabulary are, "I don't feel like it." Because every time you obey that voice, you weaken your will and strengthen your excuses. But here's the power you have. You don't have to feel like it to do it. You can show up tired. You can show up discouraged. You can show up with fear in your chest and fire in your belly. Because action doesn't need perfect conditions, it needs a decision. One solid decision backed by commitment is more powerful than 1,000 perfect plans that never get started. And when you train yourself to take action regardless of emotion, you become untouchable. You stop waiting and you start moving. You stop reacting and you start creating. You stop being controlled by the weather inside your head and start controlling the atmosphere around your life. This is what separates the amateurs from the masters. Amateurs do what they feel like. Masters do what they decided to do. Amateurs get results when the stars align. Masters get results because they align their behavior with their values, not their emotions. They don't train when it's easy. They train because it's necessary. They don't lead when they feel powerful. They lead because they made a promise to themselves. They don't keep their word because it's convenient. They keep their word because their integrity is non-negotiable. That's how you build a life that doesn't collapse when the winds of emotion blow. You anchor it in discipline. Understand this: you were not built to be ruled by moods. You were designed to rise above them. You were not made to wait for energy. You were made to generate it. Discipline generates energy. Momentum creates confidence. Movement builds belief. The more you act, the more powerful you become, not because life gets easier, but because you get stronger. Strong enough to face resistance and say, "I'm doing it anyway." Strong enough to stare laziness in the face and say, "Not today." Strong enough to feel fear and still move forward like it's your birthright to win, because it is. And it's not about becoming a robot with no emotion. It's about becoming a warrior with emotional control. It's about mastering your internal world so you can dominate the external one. It's about being able to feel weakness and still choose strength. To feel overwhelmed and still choose clarity. To feel anger, sadness, weariness, and still choose responsibility. Because maturity is not the absence of emotion, it's the management of it. And the more you practice that management, the more capable you become of handling pressure, responsibility, and power. That's why mastering your emotions is not just a life skill, it's a success skill. It determines how far you go, how high you climb, and how long you last. You've seen it before people who had the talent, the opportunity, the knowledge, and still lost. Why? Because they let a single emotion derail everything. One bad day turned into a bad week. One failure turned into permanent doubt. One harsh word made them abandon the path. And just like that, the mission died, not because they couldn't, but because they wouldn't. Because they obeyed an emotion instead of staying loyal to a decision. That's the difference between potential and legacy. Potential is what you could do if everything felt right. Legacy is what you build even when nothing feels right, because you refuse to quit. When you build this level of emotional mastery, you unlock something rare. You unlock consistency, and consistency is the holy grail of success. Not talent, not luck, not hype. Consistency, showing up again and again. Not letting one bad day define your week. Not letting one setback cancel your identity. Not letting one emotion change your entire vision. The people who win in life aren't the ones who never struggle, they're the ones who never stop. They fall, they bleed, they cry, and they get up again and again and again. That's the pattern of the unshakable. That's the mindset of a builder. That's the foundation of a life that can't be broken by storms, because it wasn't built on sand, it was built on character. You don't need to feel powerful to be powerful. You don't need to feel confident to make the right move. You just need to trust the process, trust your training, trust the version of you that made the decision before the emotion showed up. Because that version of you, the one who committed, who planned, who knew what mattered, that version was wise. That version saw the big picture. And if you keep honoring that version, even when the current version wants to quit, you will win. Not just once, but for life, because true power isn't loud, it's not flashy, it's not reactive. True power is quiet obedience to your higher self. It's waking up and doing what's required, no matter what your emotions whisper. It's honoring the future over the feeling. It's training your body, mind, and soul to follow conviction instead of convenience. That's power. That's discipline. And that is what separates those who merely dream from those who deliver. So decide right now, your emotions are not the boss. Your decisions are, your values are, your mission is. When you live like that, when you master your inner world, success isn't a question anymore. It's an outcome. It's not a maybe, it's a must, because your discipline will take you places your feelings never could, and your emotional mastery will keep you there. You cannot master success until you learn to sacrifice. That's the word people avoid: sacrifice. Everyone wants to win, but not everyone is willing to bleed for it. They want the results, the recognition, the lifestyle, but when it's time to pay the price, they hesitate. They shrink. They negotiate with the cost of greatness. But here's the truth. You will never build anything that lasts if you're not willing to give up something you love for something you love more. That's the test. That's the trade. Every level you want to reach has a price tag, and comfort is always the first thing it demands. If you are not willing to let go of comfort, you are not serious about success. Period. Success doesn't come knocking while you're watching distractions and delaying your destiny. It comes when you cancel the things that don't serve your purpose. When you sacrifice comfort, you unlock clarity. When you sacrifice ease, you develop endurance. When you sacrifice popularity, you discover your own power. That's the formula. You cannot be addicted to comfort and expect to build anything that matters. You want to rise above average, then you have to be willing to do what average people refuse to do. They choose the easy route, you take the hard one. They look for shortcuts, you outlast. They want applause. You chase mastery. That's the difference. Not talent, not potential, but the price each person is willing to pay. You say you want to master success, then master sacrifice. That means sacrificing distractions for focus, sacrificing weekends for building, sacrificing entertainment for education, sacrificing immediate pleasure for long-term fulfillment, because every moment you waste on what doesn't matter is a moment stolen from what could have changed your life. And every time you say yes to something unworthy, you say no to what's truly worthy. You only have so much time, so much energy, so many days, and if you don't guard them with sacrifice, they'll disappear into the black hole of average. Most people don't fail because they don't have enough. They fail because they're not willing to give enough. They want to sleep in and rise up. They want to scroll endlessly and still have mental strength. They want to waste hours and still earn millions. That's delusion, not discipline. You can't pray for success and then disrespect your own time. You can't dream big and then act small. You can't want more and then refuse to change. That's not how the game works. Life doesn't reward wishes, it rewards work. Relentless work, and work requires sacrifice. You'll never get the life you want by holding on to the one that's keeping you stuck. That's where most people lose. They want elevation without separation. But elevation requires separation from comfort, from your old patterns, from anything that drains your drive. You have to separate from excuses. Separate from people who don't get it, separate from the voice in your head that tells you to quit every time it gets hard, because nothing poisons success faster than staying close to what you should have walked away from a long time ago. Success is built in the moments nobody claps for. When you're tired and still choose the gym, when you're tempted and still choose focus, when you're lonely but still stay loyal to your mission, when you're afraid but still take the shot. These are the moments that separate the weak from the warriors, the pretenders from the producers, and these moments don't come dressed in motivation, they come disguised as resistance. They don't feel good. They don't feel easy, but if you sacrifice your comfort for them, they will transform you. That's what real success is, transformation through sacrifice. You will never hear a champion say, "I got here by doing what was easy." Never. Champions sacrifice their excuses, they sacrifice their distractions, they sacrifice their comfort zones, and they don't apologize for it, because they know that the only way to get to the top is to give up what's keeping you at the bottom. They understand that temporary pain leads to permanent power. They understand that your dream has a cost, and if you're not willing to pay it, someone else will live it. You've got to decide what matters more, your feelings or your future. Because you can't have both. You can't protect your comfort and unlock your calling at the same time. One will kill the other. So choose every day, choose when that alarm goes off, you're choosing. When temptation shows up, you're choosing. When pressure hits, when rejection comes, when the results are slow, you're still choosing. And every choice is either a sacrifice that moves you forward or a surrender that sets you back. The truth is, success demands more from you than you think. It demands sleepless nights. It demands missed parties. It demands misunderstood seasons. It demands lonely hours where nobody understands what you're building. It demands the courage to walk alone when nobody else believes in your vision. And if you're not willing to walk through that, you don't really want it. You're just fascinated by the idea of it. Because the people who truly want it, they bleed for it. They break for it. They sacrifice for it. And that's why they own it. Sacrifice isn't loss, it's an investment. Every distraction you give up buys you back time. Every comfort you deny yourself builds inner strength. Every delay of gratification increases your capacity for greatness. You're not losing anything you're trading up. You're trading weakness for strength, noise for clarity, laziness for legacy. That's the deal. And the more you sacrifice, the lighter your soul becomes, the clearer your path gets, and the stronger your conviction grows. At some point, you'll look back and realize that what you sacrificed wasn't even worth keeping. That comfort was a cage, that ease was a lie, that convenience was just a thief dressed in nice clothes. You'll realize that what you gave up was nothing compared to what you gained. You gained power. You gained control. You gained the rarest thing in this world, a life lived on purpose, a life that inspires, a life that wins not just once, but again and again, because it was built on sacrifice, not shortcuts. And yes, it will be hard, but let me ask you, is comfort really easier? Is wasting your life day by day really less painful? Is dying with regret really lighter than the weight of discipline? Because the truth is, both paths hurt. The grind hurts, but so does stagnation. Sacrifice hurts, but so does failure. Discipline is painful, but so is regret. You just have to choose your pain. One leads to power, the other leads to pity. So if you truly want success, master the art of letting go. Let go of the things that no longer serve your mission. Let go of the identity that keeps you small. Let go of your addiction to ease. Let go of trying to please everyone. Let go of the noise, the drama, the nonsense, and lock in, commit, burn the ships, give everything, because the only way out is through, and the only way through is sacrifice. You do not rise to the level of your goals, you fall to the level of your systems. That's the brutal truth nobody wants to accept. People dream big, speak big, post big visions, but they fail small. Why? Because their systems are broken, their habits are weak, their structure is missing. Success is not built in the dream, it is built in the daily, in what you repeat, what you allow, what you demand from yourself every single day. You don't become great by accident, you engineer greatness. Brick by brick, routine by routine, and that starts by replacing emotion. Driven effort with structure, driven execution, because without structure, motivation is useless. Without systems, passion is wasted. If you don't have a plan to win, you've already made a plan to lose. And most people are losing not because they're not capable, but because they're unstructured. You want success, then build the machine that creates it. Not just once, but again and again. That's what high performers do. They build systems that don't rely on how they feel. They build habits that don't wait for inspiration. They build environments that make success the natural result, not the rare exception. While the world chases hype and quick hacks, the masters are in the shadows, executing quietly. They don't talk about goals, they build systems so strong that the goals become inevitable. Their mornings are structured. Their time is guarded. Their energy is protected. Their calendar reflects their values. They don't negotiate with laziness. They don't entertain distraction. They don't make space for chaos because they know structure creates freedom. You see, freedom doesn't come from doing whatever you want. That's a lie sold by the undisciplined. Real freedom comes from discipline. Real freedom is waking up and knowing your life is moving without waiting on willpower, without depending on emotion. When you have structure, your success becomes automatic. It's not a question of if, it's only a matter of time. That's the power of alignment. That's the secret the average never discover, because they keep changing their mind, changing their routine, chasing noise while the disciplines stay locked in, day after day, refining their system until results are guaranteed. Think about it. You don't rise because you had one powerful day. You rise because you built a pattern of powerful days. You don't transform because of one decision. You transform because you made the right decision repeatedly. That's structure. That's consistency. That's the grind that leads to greatness. It's not pretty. It's not flashy. It's often invisible, but it works, and it outlasts everything else. Even motivation dies. But structure lives, passion fades, but structure produces, emotion fluctuates, but structure executes. When you build the right system, success stops being a fight, it becomes a rhythm. You can have all the talent in the world, but if you wake up every day without a clear plan, you will waste it. You can have all the drive, all the hunger, all the inspiration, but if you don't build a system that protects your focus, channels your energy, and repeats productive behavior, you will eventually burn out. That's the cost of living in chaos. You're always starting over, always trying to get back on track, always hoping for another spark. But when you live in structure, you don't need sparks because the fire never dies. It's sustained by routine, fed by discipline, fueled by strategy. This is where most people lose the game. They keep making new goals when what they really need is new systems. They think their problem is lack of motivation, but it's actually lack of clarity. They think they need more time, but what they really need is tighter structure. They think they're unmotivated, but they're just undisciplined. And you can fix all of that with one powerful shift: system over willpower. Plan over guesswork, execution over emotion, because when you lock in your systems, success doesn't ask permission. It just starts showing up quietly, consistently, undeniably. Let me make this practical. Your morning is a system. Your workout is a system. Your learning, your sleep, your finances, your thinking, all systems, and every system is either pulling you forward or holding you back. If you don't control the system will control you. And most of the time, if you're not intentional, your system defaults to comfort, delay, and distraction. That's why you have to design your life like a mission, ruthlessly, clearly, intelligently. You don't leave it to chance, you make it serve your goals. You make every part of your day point toward your vision. And yes, it will feel boring sometimes. Yes, you'll miss the chaos you used to live in. Yes, it won't feel fun. But the results, the peace, the confidence that comes from knowing your life is not random anymore, that's worth every sacrifice. Because you don't rise to the level of random bursts, you rise to the level of reliable systems. Systems you built, systems you earned, systems you control. You want to master success, then master repetition, master routine, master rhythm, master boring. That's right, because the people who master the boring win the extraordinary. While everyone else is chasing intensity, you're building consistency. While they're burning out, you're building up. That's the long game. That's the winner's game. That's the game of the few, the builders, the legends, the ones who made success their baseline, not their dream. So, from this day forward, stop asking if you're motivated. Start asking if you're structured. Stop waiting to feel ready. Start building the systems that make readiness irrelevant. You don't need hype. You need clarity. You don't need perfection. You need consistency. You don't need more talent. You need a structure that multiplies the talent you already have. That's how you master success. You engineer it. With thought, with grit, with systems that never sleep, never lie, never fail because they are built on principle, not personality.